She lost her husband. She lost her family. But she didn't lose her fire. What she built after betrayal shocked the world. I woke before the sun, the way I always have when the house still breathed that cool hush that belongs only to early mornings. My chipped white mug waited by the kettle, steam fogging the window above the sink. Beyond the glass, Reno's sky carried that pale lavender promise of another dry Nevada day. Even in silence, the house spoke. The wobbly bookcase Thomas had refused to replace. The dining table we sanded together. Elaine's tiny handprints pressed into the back step concrete. These were my anchors. These were my life. And yet, at Sunday lunch, the daughter I raised and the man she married looked at me as if I were just a burden to be managed. Elaine's smile was brittle, her eyes evasive. Mark's voice carried the sharp authority of someone certain of his own power. "Mom," Elaine said, her words slicing through the air, "this house is too big for you. It's time you move into a community. It'll be safer." My roast chicken, still warm on the counter, went unnoticed. So did the daisies on the table. What they saw was not a mother or a woman, but an inconvenience. And in that moment, the house that had always felt like mine suddenly felt borrowed. Thursday brought a sharp chill. Laundry folded, kettle cooling, when a loud knock rattled my door. Mark barged in without waiting. Behind him, a man in a gray suit trailed with a clipboard and tape measure. "This is the appraiser," Mark announced. His tone carried ownership, not introduction. I watched as the man walked through my living room, brushing past family photos. His knuckles tapped on walls. He muttered about outdated plumbing and dated fixtures. Each word stripped another layer of my dignity. Elaine followed, her smile frozen. She nodded politely as though agreeing with the stranger that the life I built wasn't good enough. I stood clutching the lace curtain I had sewn myself, invisible. That night, Elaine returned alone, brochures in her hands, full of glossy images of bingo nights and smiling seniors under fluorescent lights. "Look, Mom," she said brightly. "They even have game nights." I shook my head. "I am not leaving my house." Her lips thinned. "Mark says you left the stove on last week. You could have burned this place down." A lie. Spoken so calmly it nearly sounded like truth. Friday morning, Mark returned with another man. This one carried legal folders, their sharp edges stacked like weapons. He spread them across my dining table, the same table where Thomas and I once mapped out vacations we never took. "Mrs. Hale," the lawyer began, "if you sign here, the property transfer will be simple." "Transfer?" My whisper barely held shape. Mark leaned forward, his eyes narrowed. "You can't make decisions anymore. Elaine is acting in your best interest." The lawyer cleared his throat. "If you resist, we'll pursue a petition of mental incapacity." My throat burned. The daisies from Sunday had wilted, drooping as if ashamed. I pressed my hand against the tablecloth I had stitched years ago. "I need time," I said. "1 week," Mark snapped. "After that, we'll do what must be done." When the door slammed, silence folded around me. For the first time since Thomas's funeral, I cried until the house itself echoed with grief. In the quiet hours, I searched Thomas's old desk. My fingers brushed against a brass-locked folder wedged at the back. The tiny key waited, tucked inside an old gardening book. My hands trembled as the lock clicked. Inside, documents revealed a man I had never fully known. A will written 6 months before he died. Property deeds to 3 apartment buildings. Stock certificates, bank statements. Every line named me, his wife, as sole heir with one condition. Elaine would inherit only if she cared for me, with love and respect in my final years. And then a letter. "My dearest Margaret," his familiar handwriting spilled across the page. He spoke of gratitude, foresight, and protection. He wrote of Mark's ambition, his distrust, and the safeguards he'd built for me. Tears blurred the ink, but clarity surged inside me. For months, I had believed I was powerless, but Thomas had left me not only wealth but armor. The movers stood at my door, polite but ready. Mark marched in like a conqueror. Elaine followed, her hand on her stomach, rehearsing a role I hadn't yet understood. "Start with the bedroom," Mark ordered. "No one touches a thing," I said. Calm, but unshakable. Mark laughed. "To you? You live on a pension." I set a property deed on the table. "Did you enjoy your apartment these last 3 years, Mark? That rent money? It came to me. I own the building." His face drained. Elaine collapsed into a chair, whispering, "Mom, how?" "Your father," I said. "He saw through Mark long before I did." Mark slammed his fist. "You can't do this!" But I already had. 2 months later, we stood in Reno's courthouse. Mark had filed suit, accusing me of manipulation, demanding custody of Elaine's unborn child. His lawyer painted me as a bitter widow, desperate for control. For a moment, I feared the jury might believe him. But then, my attorney laid out Mark's cruelty. The texts, the threats, the neighbors' testimonies, nail after nail hammered into his coffin. And then fate twisted. The judge, stern, silver-haired, looked at me. "Mrs. Hale? Margaret Hale?" His voice faltered. "You once worked here, did you not? As a secretary, 30 years ago?" I nodded, stunned. "I was an intern then," he said softly. "You told me I could make it when no one else believed." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Elaine's hand tightened on mine. Mark's face paled. The judge's voice hardened. "It is clear you sought to manipulate and isolate these women. This court rules in favor of Mrs. Hale and Elaine Foster. Mr. Foster, you will have no custody rights. You are prohibited from approaching either woman." The gavel fell, and with it, Mark's reign ended. 5 years passed. Elaine rebuilt her life, free from Mark's shadow. She became an accountant, a mother, and slowly, my daughter again. And then came Lily, my granddaughter, wild curls bouncing as she chased butterflies in my garden. Her laughter filled the spaces once hollowed by betrayal. With part of Thomas's inheritance, I founded Haven Hearth, a shelter and legal aid for women discarded by their families. One house became 3, then more. Letters poured in. "You gave me back my dignity." One spring afternoon, Judge Ortega, older now, but smiling, stood on my porch. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "we wish to honor you, not just for surviving, but for giving back." That night, rocking Lily to sleep, I realized the house no longer echoed with grief. It pulsed with forgiveness, laughter, and purpose. Looking back now, I see more than betrayal in courtrooms. I see a road that taught me sacrifice is not silence, that motherhood is not surrender. I learned dignity must be guarded, even from those closest to you, and that kindness, planted long ago, can return when you need it most. Elaine lost her way, but she found it again, and I found my voice. So to anyone listening, you are never too old, never too small, never too late to stand. Protect your home, protect your heart, protect your truth. Because strength isn't about wealth or power. It's about choosing not to hand over your dignity. I am Margaret Hail, and this is my story. 5 quiet years passed. Elaine rebuilt herself. Lily grew bold and bright, and Haven Hearth thrived. But shadows never vanish fully. One evening, as I locked the shelter, a man leaned against the fence. A familiar smirk cut through the dusk mark. He wasn't supposed to be there. The restraining order still stood. "Enjoying my daughter's charity?" he spat. "She's not yours anymore," I said, my voice steady. "You think this is over, old woman? Money buys new lawyers." That night, I slept with the porch light on. Old battles don't always end with gavels, they linger in whispers. At first, Lily brought home colorful drawings from kindergarten. Then came folded paper scrawled with venom. "Your grandmother stole your father's life. One day you'll see her truth." Elaine's hands shook as she read them. "He's found a way to reach her. We filed reports, but paper leaves no fingerprints." One night, Lily asked, "Grandma, why does Daddy say you're bad?" My heart broke, but I knew silence would poison her more than truth. I told her the story, not of betrayal, but of strength. That families can break, but they can also rebuild. It was winter when smoke clawed through the night. Neighbors' shouts pulled me from sleep. Flames licked the back of the shelter. Someone had poured gasoline against the siding. We escaped, coughing, clutching files and photographs. The fire crew fought, but half the house turned to ash. Investigators found footprints leading toward the road. The size, the weight, the direction, they all whispered Mark's name. Lily clung to me, eyes wide, whispering, "He tried to burn you away." Community poured in. Donations, volunteers, carpenters. A television crew aired our story, painting us as survivors, not victims. The shelter rose again, larger, brighter. This time, we built a legal wing free lawyers for women threatened by men like Mark. Elaine, once fragile, now stood as director. Lily painted butterflies on the new lobby wall. At the opening ceremony, I whispered to Thomas's photograph, "You built this through me." My hands shook more now. Steps up, the porch felt steeper. Elaine begged me to rest, but rest is a thief. I couldn't surrender my days to stillness. Doctors murmured about my heart. I waved them off. But at night, I counted each beat, wondering if one might be the last. I began writing letters to Lily, not about betrayal, but about recipes, garden secrets, and the sound of Thomas's laugh. I wanted her to know me, even when my chair sat empty. Mark struck again. This time, not with fire, but with law. He petitioned for visitation with Lily, claiming, "A child has a right to her father." Courtroom lights buzzed above me as Elaine wept beside me. Mark's lawyers painted him as rehabilitated, but then our attorney spoke of arson attempts, threats, and restraining orders. Witnesses testified. Finally, Lily herself, only 10, stood before the judge. Her small voice trembled but clear. "I don't feel safe with him. My family is here." The gavel fell. Petition denied. Permanently? Mark slumped, defeated, eyes hollow. I felt no triumph, only release. Years later, the house still stood, filled with laughter and sunlight. Elaine's hair streaked with silver. Lily, now a young woman, carried my fire in her eyes. On my last spring morning, I sat on the porch, daisies blooming again, and Lily placed her hand over mine. "Grandma," she whispered, "I'll take care of this place. I promise." I smiled. My fight was done, but my legacy lived in her, in Elaine, in every woman Haven Hearth sheltered. When my eyes finally closed, I wasn't afraid. My story wasn't ending. It was only passing forward. Closing line. I am Margaret Hail. I stood, I fought, and I gave back. And in the end, that is enough. Margaret's passing left Elaine and Lily in grief, but also in awe of the empire she built. Haven Hearth became more than a shelter. It became a movement. Newspapers wrote, "From betrayal to legacy, the Margaret Hail story." But legacies bring shadows. A local developer saw the shelter's land as profit. They launched lawsuits, pressuring Elaine to sell. Old whispers about Mark resurfaced. Was he gone? Or pulling strings from the dark? Elaine, now middle-aged, had to decide. Fight like her mother, or surrender in exhaustion. She chose fight. But unlike Margaret, she didn't yet have her mother's iron. Elaine took the director's seat at Haven Hearth. Overnight, she was CEO, mother, fighter, and still grieving daughter. Stress clawed at her. Board members wanted expansion. Donors wanted glossy photos. Lawyers wanted bills paid. And Lily, now 21, wanted freedom. She dreamed of college abroad, not shelter walls. Tension grew. Elaine snapped at Lily. "You think this place runs itself. Your grandmother built this with blood." Lily's reply cut sharp. "And you're burying me under it." Meanwhile, the developer's lawyers struck again, claiming zoning violations. Elaine feared losing everything Margaret fought for. The ghost was no metaphor. Mark had resurfaced older, thinner, but not broken. He returned under a new alias, working quietly with the developers. Documents leaked showed his hand in forged claims, bribed inspectors, and shadow deals. He wanted revenge, not just profit. Elaine confronted him in court. He smirked. Your mother's gone, and you're not half the fighter she was. But Elaine was not alone. Lily secretly gathered testimonies. Women Mark had hurt in the past, turning his darkness against him. When Elaine collapsed from exhaustion days before trial, Lily stepped up. She was young, untested, but Margaret's blood ran in her. On the stand, Lily's voice shook but grew stronger. My grandmother built Haven, Hearth so women could stand. I stand for her. I stand for my mother. And I stand against him. Mark unraveled. Witnesses testified. Developers backed away, fearing exposure. The judge slammed down the gavel. Haven! Hearth protected! Mark stripped of claims. Crowds outside cheered Lily's courage. She had become what Margaret always hoped, a fighter who carried the torch forward. Years passed. Haven, Hearth, grew into a national network. Elaine guided it with steady hands. Lily studied law, then returned not just as granddaughter, but as protector of the legacy. A final ceremony was held. The Reno mayor unveiled a plaque. The Margaret Hail Justice Center. Elaine wept quietly, feeling both pride and release. Lily spoke to the crowd. My grandmother's story began with betrayal, but it ends with justice. She showed us that strength is not about never breaking, but about rising every time you do. The house that once echoed with silence now brimmed with children's laughter, women's healing, and generations of strength. Even with Haven, Hearth thriving, new cracks appeared. Elaine grew older and tired. She'd spent decades fighting battles, and her body now whispered that time was short. Lily, now a rising lawyer, wanted to modernize the organization, pushing for digital campaigns, nationwide chapters, international recognition. Elaine resisted. She feared too much change would dilute Margaret's soul. Their arguments echoed Margaret and Elaine's old fights. Elaine, this was built with blood, Lily. Not hashtags. Lily, and if we don't adapt, it dies. Meanwhile, a cyber attack targeted Haven, Hearth's records. Donor data was leaked. Women in hiding were exposed. Panic swept the shelter. This wasn't Mark. This was a new kind of enemy. The new enemy wasn't a man in a courtroom, but a faceless network predators online, abusers tracking women through digital means, powerful voices trying to silence survivors. Lily took the lead. She launched Project Ember, blending legal aid with cyber defense. Young activists joined, carrying Margaret's fire into a digital age. Elaine, though weakened, watched proudly from the sidelines, finally ready to pass the torch fully. At the first Project Ember rally, thousands lit candles. On the stage, Lily spoke. My grandmother fought betrayal. My mother fought greed. I fight silence, and I promise we will never be silent again. The crowd roared. The saga that began in Margaret's kitchen had become a movement spanning generations, cities, and now the world.